Okay, let's start this sortie video. It's going to be rescue, defense, and spy. So two easy and one that's going to take a ridiculously long amount of time because defense is stupid. Defense is really stupid. It shouldn't last towards 10 because that just takes like legitimately 20 minutes. Now, today's topic, as you can probably tell by like the name of the video, is quite a bit more serious. It is it's gonna be a bit interesting how this plays out because it is like a decently controversial topic. Okay, that's nice. And when it comes to like comments and everything, I would rather we try to stray away from stupid comments and try to stick with, you know, like the actual criticizing and other comments like that, or just giving your opinion, because this is going to be like a little bit my thought-ish as well, because this is going to have like my own thoughts in it. So I might throw this into something that I was going to start sooner than later as well. Who would have think it would have been lost? So today's topic is guns. Gun control and all that nonsense. Yeah, it's not really nonsense, but still. Now, the reason I'm even doing this, because as I kind of said in the past, I didn't really want to go with controversial topics or anything like that, is because quite a bit today in the last few days, I've been hearing a lot of like the shooting incident that happened, and then there's also the whatever the heck it's called. Then there were like forever ago there was the Vegas shooting incident as well. I've been hearing it from like YouTube with the Markiplier video. Now, I very rarely watch him honestly, but I just kind of noticed that he had that, and it's like, okay, you know what, I might as well just see what his opinion is on it. Oh shoot. So yeah. And because of that, and just like with all the current attention that these things have been getting in general, I decided I might as well play my hand in it as well and see, and just like give out my opinion on it. As I said, it is just my opinion. I can't say that that you're going to agree with me or disagree with me in any way. And when it comes to guns in general, unlike a good amount of others, I'd say, not the majority of people, I've never actually like shot a real gun. Now, I've shot like a whole different like lower quality type guns, but never like an actual military grade or above type gun. And even when I have it's been very, very rare, and it was a very long time ago as well. And so that when it comes to like guns in general, I don't 100% know everything about them. I cannot tell you that everything I'm saying is 100% for certain or not, and like so on and so forth. What the heck? And as I said, it is more opinion based than anything else. When you mess up super hard on hacking, is it mine? It was mine. But so yeah, now let's actually now let's get to the actual topic. So when it comes to it, as you can see, their guns by nature are meant for more killing purposes. Even in like hunting and recreational, that it is definitely more killing, except for like, and there are like actual sports involving shooting too. There's the sports that I have no idea the name of, and all I know is pool when they throw out the frisbee and things like that. And that's really all I got. But I'm just gonna flat out say like my thoughts on it. is that I honestly don't think that the like guns themselves are really the problem. Now, I do think that it should be harder to get guns in some case, in some, how should I say this? I'm going to say like definitions or some ways, but not in general. I think that there definitely should be more like background checks involved, and like you should need to like show a valid ID that you're like 18 or older by like bare minimum, and like so on and so forth, to the point where it is like pretty difficult to get it. And then like if you do have a gun owner, then you need to like fit, I don't know, like, I'm not gonna say requirements to like prevent it from getting in the wrong hands, because honestly most of the time if you are a gun owner and you actually know what you're doing, it won't end up in the wrong hands. But I really don't think that like guns being present nor anything like that, it is a problem. Like something that one of my actual teachers told me is that in the high school that I went to, we could not, there was a big sign on the front that said like no guns at all are permitted on the property. And he said that he honestly disliked this, and he's not saying that teachers should be enforced to do this, but he was saying that he would prefer it if like teachers and like security guards and like nothing more could bring like their weapons if they're trained, and they have to show that they are trained with the weapons, not just like a teacher, any teacher that has a gun can bring it. But like if you are trained with guns, that you are capable of actually like then you can bring a gun onto like the premises and keep it in your personal classroom and not take it anywhere else for self-defense. And then like he brought up a good point, because originally I was kind of thinking like, I don't really know about that. I think like, yeah, the security guards should be able to do this, but I don't really think teachers should. And I still think that like teachers shouldn't if they are not trained, which he was also saying like the same thing, but still. And the reason I was thinking this is just because like I don't want the teacher to like have rash thinking or something like that, and like decide to shoot when he really didn't need to or something like that, or just something bad happens because the teacher had a weapon. I didn't really know what. I wasn't specific with it. I just thought, I don't know about the teachers having it. But he then said this, where there are schools in the world that do allow this, that permit their teachers to bring firearms, and then on like the front of the school it says, we are armed and trained, so that like the teachers themselves are actually armed and trained to use these guns that they have. And because of this, honestly, this is going to be a bit of a kind of like, I wouldn't say a horrible thing to say, but this is going to be a bit hard for like people, like rationally mind thinking people, to like really try to wrap their head around, which is, if you were going to do this action and going to actually like bring a gun to school, would you rather go to the place where it says no guns allowed, or would you rather go to the place that says we are armed and trained? Now obviously, yes, it's a horrible thing to think of it, but at the same time, you're going to want to avoid the school that's going to fire back. As I said, I'm not trying to encourage anyone to be doing this, but yeah. And because of that, like that's why I would think, honestly, yeah, that would be a better idea. But then there are a lot of like parents and others that will be like, no, like having guns there will distract the students and like so on and so forth. And I want to be like, how? The only way it will distract the students if they're personally dislike guns in general, from like knowing what they do and like so on and so forth. is if like they personally dislike the gun. But that's really the only way. Besides that, it's not going to distract them from learning or anything, especially if the teacher keeps it out of sight. Like, each teacher has a desk. They can easily just keep it inside a locked drawer in their desk and have, like, the key on their keychain where they have their car keys and everything else. And, like, because of that, it is why I don't really think that, like, just like that it can't physically distract them in any way. And that's really, if that's the only bad thing that you have to say about it, then honestly you shouldn't be saying anything. Like, and if anything, then take your son or child to a different school. But, and then it comes to like other things, like the police forces and like so on and so forth. I forget who it was, but there have been like people that have said that they don't want like any guns at all. They don't want the police force. They don't want like guns available at all. 110% completely like not extinct and can still be used for like military, but just like in the actual cities and anything outside of a military base, they cannot be around. And I'm just like, that's a terrible idea, because criminals they're already criminals. They're gonna have no problem with breaking the law and acquiring a legal gun. But who will have a problem doing this will be police officers, because they need to stick with the law. And a police officer can definitely defend with a gun, or defend better with a gun than without of one. Now, yes, not in every circumstance. Plus, it would probably lower like the police, what is called police brutality and police casualties, like casualties by police. But that's really it, and it will also probably cause like an increase in criminals and like so on and so forth, because they'll realize that they can get away with horrible things. And yeah, now back to like what I was saying earlier with like how as I said, I think it should be harder in general to really acquire a gun. As I said, it should be like absolutely mandatory to do whatever the heck it's called, to like do background checks to make sure that they have no criminal record at all. And like so on and so forth, and then they should have a viable ID, and yeah, and that it should be like regulated in some sort of way, and that just like any gun show in the world can't sell a whole lot of guns, basically. Because there is a video online of like a 13-year-old boy walking into, I don't really know whatever the heck it's technically it's called. It's not really like a gun show. I guess it sort of is, but there's like a whole lot of stands, kind of like that you'd see at like a market, sort of. And each stand has guns on it from like the owner, and then you can just walk up to and like buy anything you want, as long as you have like the price and everything and the money for it. And then like the guy that's recording is like a 13-year-old boy or something, and he's doing whatever the heck it's called, and he just buys a gun. And just like that, in my opinion, that is not safe, and that should we should try to prevent that, which is what I was saying with like the valid IDs. And then now I can go back on like something else that I sort of like touched upon, really, which is that if you actually know what you're doing with a gun, you're not really a danger. Like, if you know what you're doing with a gun and you have a gun in your house for self-defense, probably, or the chances are that like people around you will not be able to get the gun. that like people that aren't trained and others like that will not be able to get the gun from you because you know what you're doing and you know how to do whatever the heck it's called, and you know how to like keep it out of their reach, where to put it, how it's safe. Like there has been instances where people have done whatever the heck it's called, where they just dropped their gun. They were just holding it regularly and then they just dropped it, and because they dropped it, it went off and actually managed to like shoot either themselves or whatever the heck it's called, like a family member of them. And because of that is why I'm saying, like, those people obviously really don't know what they're doing. Now, yes, anyone is capable of doing like human error and messing up in some way, shape, or form. From just like anyone can drop a gun, anyone can have butterfingers, but nonetheless, the people that are aware of like the dangers and everything with guns are much less likely to drop it. They are much less likely to aim it at their own like face. And I'm not making like a suicide thing or anything like that. I'm talking about just like they're less likely, like when they're cleaning it and things like that, to do something really stupid that is often like portrayed in movies as being really stupid as like a comedy part. Is like when a person like takes the gun and they're just like looking at the gun, examining it, and then they like point it at themselves. They're like, why? Like, why would you do that? It's like, even though it's often like a comedy strip and things like that, there are people in the world that will actually do that. And it's like, really? Like, how could you take something that could just kill you flat out in an instant from accidentally pulling the trigger or just something like that and point it at your face? Now, yes, I know that you do need to pull the trigger and like so on and so forth, but it's you could still, that's all that needs to happen. So like that is just completely ridiculous in my opinion. And that's why I'm saying like only those who are like at least trained or know what they're doing, have like the ID and everything, and have no background should be able to like get a gun. Now, I do see where other people are coming from when they say that, like, assault rifles are a bit much. Because there's, like, many people that think, like, you really don't need, like, assault rifles and so on and so forth. They're very big guns. Well, not very big gun. They're just guns that can shoot a whole lot of bullets and just do a whole lot of damage. That's literally their main point. Like, even, what's his face? Like, as I said, one of the things that, like, caused me to do this video was Markiplier. So even him, he said that, like, assault rifles really, by nature, are really only used for killing and nothing else. That, like, other guns, yes, have recreational use, such as, like, sports and so on, and then, like, you can use them for self-defense, but for self-defense with an assault rifle is a bit much, just because they're really mainly used for shooting a whole lot. So the only time you'd really need to use an assault rifles for self-defense is if you're, like, multiple people are threatening your life at the same time, each one of them armed. And that in, like, most other cases, a simple pistol or a smaller gun that really doesn't have as much of an impact would still suffice. Where, as I said, I do see why you would say that, and honestly, I agree with it to an extent. But at the same time, I will admit that it is an amendment for people to be able to carry guns. And I think that it's really not carrying guns that is the problem. And I would say that, like, a lot of other people that I know that will go, like, for guns will always be like, guns aren't the thing that kill people, it's the people that shoot the guns. Which I would have to agree to an extent. Like, it is Now, I would also have to agree on both ways, where I'm not really one or the other. I'm a bit of a mix between what I think should happen with guns. As I said, I do think it should be more difficult to obtain them, and that not just anyone in the world can walk up and be like, I would like a gun. Now, I know that there are gun laws and everything, and not anyone in the world, as I was just saying. I am exaggerating, and I fully do understand now how I am exaggerating. But nonetheless, yeah, I am exaggerating that specific point. And I'm fully aware of it. But it should become more difficult. Not like an insane amount, and I'm not saying that any gun should be restricted, such as I do believe that we should be able to like purchase the gun that we want. Such as my friend Jack, he actually wants to get, I can't remember the rifle. It's like the standard rifle that is in every movie and everything, that is always like the main military rifle. I think it's like the M16 or something like that. And then I told him how like my favorite rifle is the ACR. And that's really it. And as I was saying, like, I do think that we should have the option of doing this. But having this option, I can agree that I don't think the option alone can spark violence, but having the violence already in you, and like being the type of person that could do horrible things, and then having guns and like so on and so forth at your disposal, such as like knowing that you could go get an ACR or an M16 or whatever, like just knowing that could potentially cause a negative response, which is you actually getting it and wanting to do things with it. And then another thing that one of my other teachers that I've talked to more recently had something to say is where he said that, like, violence sparks other violence. Whereas if someone's having a mental health issue and they're thinking about doing horrible things, they might go and they like read in the news that such and such just did what they were just thinking about. It could spark them to think, if he could do it, so could I, or something along those lines. Sorry, I just had to get a drink. My throat's getting a little dry. And it can cause something like that to happen. Like same with like other violence with guns, such as suicide, because that is technically a violence with gun, but it is a self-violence. If such and such sees that this person killed themselves with a gun, then he might, such and such, might also think, well, and like having that knowledge of already being depressed and wanting to do it, that could cause them to do the same. So I will say that violence sparks violence, and that it's not really just having the guns available. That alone does not spark the violence. Now, I will admit that, as I said before, like, having those guns at your disposal could cause you to think a bit more irrationally, but that alone really will not do anything. And, yeah. So, just like, I don't really think that guns themselves are the problem, and then I will go back to that, like, people's mental health really needs to be the thing to change above all else. And then, like, a big thing that a lot of people will cover when they come to gun violence is what I was just talking about a little bit ago when it comes to suicide. There are plenty of, like, statistics that will say that how, like, gun violence is rampant and, like, so on and so forth. But that gun violence that is rampant, it's counting all forms of gun violence and not just, like, actual gun violence against others. It will only cover things like it will cover suicide and not just, like, shootings. Now, yes, I'm not saying that suicide isn't a problem or anything like that, but I will say that like those are two different things, and that most of the time suicide is not with an assault rifle. So I don't really think that that should be in the same case as like gun laws. And I do think that, like, yes, that could also be vented from like what other people were saying with not allowing guns at all. But at the same time, then that would cause the other problems that I was talking about with like the police won't have them and yada yada. And then there have been other people that also will say that like only the police and military can have them, but like civilians can't at all. But then I want to say, like, if there is a shooter, it takes, like, I think one of the times that I was talking about, because we were actually talking about this in one of my college classes today, where the average time it takes for like police to get to the scene is like 5 minutes. Now, honestly, you'd think 5 minutes isn't very long, but really it is. In these types of cases, someone could do quite a bit of damage in 5 minutes. Now, yes, it's horrible to think about, and I would prefer to not think about how much damage that person can do in 5 minutes, but by the time the police get there, honestly, it could be too late. And all it takes is one person that knows what they're doing with guns, that has a firearm on them, to respond to the situation. Now, as you can probably tell from like the words I have been using, I'm trying to avoid more like criticized words and not trying to be a bit more sensitive here. As I said, it is a very sensitive topic in general, and that I'm not trying to upset anyone. I'm not trying to say that my opinion is best or anything. I think all opinions are valid. I will admit that I said personally, I kind of rest a little bit more for guns than against them, but at the same time, I'd say I'm pretty split between what I think is allowed and shouldn't be allowed. Because as I said, I do think that like assault rifles are a bit much, but we still should have the option of getting them. I think that maybe for each individual gun, you might want to have more rules and laws of how you get them, based off of like what the gun is. Like for specifically assault rifles, maybe you need to pass these tests to get that gun, but for a pistol you only need to pass these tests, and that there's different ones for each one. That could potentially be an option. I do think that any civilians and everyone should be able to get guns, but as I said, you should like be able to show a valid ID, have at least some training or a reasonable amount of training, and no criminal record. And then, like, the last thing I want to talk about is kind of prevention when it comes to, like, stadiums and, like, sports events. And they will have, whatever the heck it's called, they will have metal detectors and guards and everything, and yet they still get everything done in a timely manner. They will, like, they still get the 80,000 fans into whatever stadium that they can fit by the time that the game first starts. Now, yeah, with parking and everything, you might be a little late, but that's because of your own fault with parking. Sorry to go on a little side note there. But, like, we could definitely we could probably, to most likely, do the same type of things for school systems and other systems that could potentially be targeted. Like, just having that resistance there at all, as I was saying earlier, with having the sign on the door that says we have guns and we are trained, could potentially cause people to stray away. Like, just knowing the fact that what you could do could cause you to fail will send people to not do it. Like, same with airports and, like, so on and so forth. Like, yes, there has been great tragedies, but at the same time, having each airport with the metal detectors and all the security guards and all the protocols, that alone causes people to avoid these things. So I'm going to just wrap it up real fast because, like, the sortie is done and all. Is that, like, my opinion, as I said, I'm pretty split in between the middle. I do think that it should be harder to get guns, but I do think we should be allowed to get them in general. I think guns themselves really are not the problem at all, and that shouldn't really be gun control, and that should be more of like a mental health control, where we try to give people that with mental health issues, where we don't try to give them guns, and we try to fix the problem with them, because as I've said earlier in the video, like, guns alone cannot kill people. Like, there are no walking guns and that will just go on their own and kill people. It needs a person behind it too. Now, as I said before, I'm very sorry if I have offended or made anyone uncomfortable. I know this is a very serious topic, which is why I'm trying to keep a serious tone and not trying to say anything to offend people. If you do have your own opinion on the matter, please leave a comment. As I said, I'm completely fine with constructive criticism. If you agree with me, disagree with me, or anything in between, or both, is what I was really trying to say with that, anything in between. Please just leave something in the comments. But I'm not okay with, well, I guess I can't really control it, but as I said, I'm not okay with people just going in the comment and being like, your opinion is stupid, for just it being stupid. For just having it be your personal opinion that makes my opinion stupid, and that it doesn't actually have any evidence or so on and so forth behind it. Now, as I said, I can't really control that, but yeah, that I'm just going to ignore. So thank you all very much for watching, and I hope to see you all again. I'll probably will at some point in the future, probably not anytime soon, go on another kind of talk like this where we talk about something serious and so on and so forth. But for now, this is really all I'm getting into. And yeah, so thank you all very much for watching. I hope to see you all next time, and I bid you all adieu. Goodbye.